Hi, I'm Joseph Bemis, and this is my presentation on accessibility of Byzantine Greek text for intermediate and beginner students. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a little background on Greek pedagogy and kind of where my reader is situated in all of this. So in the 21st century, we've had a lot of creation of materials that allow like all Greek text to be accessed by Greek students of all proficiencies. There's a lot of these readers already out there for Homeric, classical, and biblical Greek, but Byzantine and liturgical texts are largely unavailable and have not been created. So this project hopes to jumpstart that creation of Byzantine materials for beginning and intermediate students, and we're just going to hop into that. So these texts are underrepresented. Pedagogical materials basically just don't exist for beginner or intermediate students, and it's kind of sad because the advantage of these texts is that there's a lot of recordings out there of these liturgies and things like that of that nature that would allow beginning students to hear how the Greek is pronounced, at least in the modern Greek Orthodox tradition. So I chose to make my reader on the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, which is one of the most widely practiced liturgies in the Greek Orthodox Church and one of the most translated works out there in this tradition. So this project hopes to make this text available and to provide a model for people who would like to make other Byzantine materials available in the same fashion. So I'm going to hop a little bit into my methodology on how I created this reader. So there's other readers that are made in the classical, biblical, and Homeric traditions have been made by people like Jeffrey Stedman and the Dickinson College Commentaries group. I use these two as models for my own work here, and mostly the Dickinson College Commentaries. They have the 500-word core Greek list that covers 80% of Greek words, like frequency-wise in the corpus. And Jeffrey Stedman, I followed his verb glossing outline, and I've personally used his readers as I went through my beginning Greek stuff. So, and they proved very helpful for me. So, alongside this, I have some grammatical notes, some contextual notes, and other things to help the reader understand what is happening during the actual service if you've never been there, to an actual Greek Orthodox service. And yeah, so we're just going to hop right in, and I'll explain some more of this in detail with my reader here. So this is an actual page of my reader. We have the text here on the left. This is the actual text that is used during services. And on the right here, we have vocabulary glosses that are not in the 500-word core. So I'm going to explain how I hope a beginner Greek student would come to this. So you go to the Dickinson College Commentaries, you memorize the 500-word core. So you come to this text after that, and you have that memorized, and you can read most of this, and the words that you don't know in the core, or like weird vocabulary or weird verb forms that are not very frequent in Greek, will also be glossed for you. So you come here and you have Pateramon, which is our Father in the core, pretty easy to understand, who is in heaven. And then we come to this verb, and usually this is where it would trip you up, where you trip up a beginner student, and instead we glossed it down here. So it's a third singular aorist imperative passive of agiazo, which is also up here in the vocabulary because it's not in the 500-word core. So you can find out that it means to sanctify. It's third singular aorist imperative passive. We have your name is sanctified. And then we have the next clause here, which is also underlined and down here. We have the kingdom of yours, and then we look at this verb, and it's third singular aorist imperative active. So your kingdom your kingdom comes, and then it continues on like that, basically. And you'd go through the whole entire Lord's Prayer, and the idea is that this will reduce frustration for beginning and intermediate students coming to this text, as well as making it accessible for them to read while they're still learning their verbs and other vocabulary. It also cuts down on time that students would need to go through like dictionary definitions and things of that nature, and lexicons and Liddell and Scott and other Greek dictionaries, as well as like wasted time they'd have to spend figuring out what these infrequent verb forms would be. So we're going to move on to the next part, which is Capella Romana, which is the choir that I chose to base my reader off of, as they practice the Byzantine musical tradition as well as adhering to most American Greek Orthodox like musical traditions. It's artistically directed by Alexander Lingus, who's a pretty big figure in the Greek Orthodox musical tradition. And then the text that I have in this reader conforms to the recording of their divine liturgy, as I figured that it's good to have a great recording of this liturgy alongside like the text, you know. So I have an example of it right here. It's widely available. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, all of that. So students can read through it, and then they can come to the Lord's Prayer, and they can hear it live, like they're at a service. So this allows students to like kind of engage with the text itself, and um, it kind of brings it to life. You're not just staring at Greek, but you're also listening to a live um, rendition of the liturgy itself. So, yeah. The hope is that other people will pick up this torch and make other readers available for other services, other Byzantine texts. But yeah, thank you. That's the end of my presentation, and I'll take questions.